39% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump could beat them in a fight. 39%. And we are supposed to take these people seriously. These morons genuinely believe that a 79-year-old fat, old, decrepit fascist would be able to beat them in a fight. 39%. Just another prime example of how the Republican Party is more of a cult than a legitimate political organization. And recently, they've just been fucking everything up for everyone with this new batch of racist Jim Crow-style redistricting laws and bending over backwards for their bigoted overlords, all while the feckless corporate Democrats still try to play by the rules even after four judges just overruled the votes of millions in Virginia. But the Republicans may have finally bit off more than they could chew because Democrats across the country are now pissed off and motivated and energized more than we've ever seen, but we'll get to that a little bit later. First things first, though, we have to talk about Virginia, where the Supreme Court there overturned the Democratic election that would have changed the map to heavily favor the Democratic Party. That was voted on democratically by the people of Virginia.
In a 4-3 decision, the Virginia Supreme Court struck down Democrats' 10-1 gerrymandered congressional district map.
4 political pawns just overturned the will of millions of people. Think about that. Isn't that fucking absurd? It makes my blood boil, right? The Democrats they play by the rules. They do it this way. We'll do the vote. We'll do this, right? They do it the Democratic way. They win the election. And then the conservatives sitting on the state Supreme Court say, actually, no, fuck you. No, oh, I'm so sad. Too bad. Bummer. Sorry. And Governor Abigail Spanberger says, oh, well, that's disappointing. We'll have to just educate our voters and make sure their voices are heard come November. And the Speaker of the House there in the state House there says that we respect the decision of the Supreme Court of Virginia. How about you respect your constituents and the people who voted for you to actually change the districting to make it, the system to actually, fight against the Republicans, right? Say actually you were going to appoint more Supreme Court justices so that they can actually, fulfill the will of the people. Or how about you do what Graham Plattner suggested and just pull in Ohio and fucking ignore it, where Graham Plattner said, I'm old enough to remember when Republicans in Ohio just ignored court rulings repeatedly and did it anyway. The pearl clutching and the woe is me, oh, we have to follow the rules and we have to be so good, and this weak, feckless, ineffective attitude is just bullshit, right? We need action. We need people who are actually going to fight. We need serious change, especially when the Republican death cult is never held to the same standards as the Democratic Party, ever. Which now is probably a good time to mention, Supreme Court elections are pretty damn important in states, and there's one happening in Georgia where 2 liberal justices are facing off the incumbent conservatives. So if you live in Georgia, might want to take a look at that one. But it's not just that the Supreme Court in Virginia fucked over millions of people. That alone is already infuriating. It's just ridiculous. But at the same time that that's happening, every former Confederate state is now pumping out Republican seats, disenfranchising black and brown voters across the South. Just take a look at this moment when the 99% white Republican caucus of the Tennessee House got rid of the only Democratic seat in the state representing Memphis, which is now gone. Just look at these smug pieces of shit. What a fucking look at this, especially this guy right here, Mr. Bowtie. Just you have to kind of respect the game at this point, right? He's such a monster, right? He woke up that morning and thought, got to put on my Bill Nye best for ripping away voting rights from black and brown people all across the country. Got to put on my cute little bow tie, my cute little cutesy bow tie. It's like, oh my God, you're such a little demon. You could literally draw a line between the Confederacy and these assholes, and it would be a straight line right across from slavery to Jim Crow to now, right? Just always the thought of white supremacy and systemic oppression just constantly on the minds of these ghouls. It's just straight as an arrow. Always one goal. Always the same. And unfortunately, it's not just Tennessee. Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Florida, they're all changing their maps. And do you think their voters had a say? Do you think that they went through the democratic process and went through all the hassle of doing the vote? No, of course not. Fuck you. What are you talking about? No. Of course, the legislators just did it, right? They don't give a damn about their voters, right? They make the rules for themselves, and then so they can do whatever they want, right? Democrats for far too long have been following the when they go low, we go high attitude. And I love you, Michelle, but we need to be wrestling in the mud with these fuckers, because they do not play by the rules. They will continue to go low, and just going high has gotten us screwed over. And on that note, here is Barack Obama on how he wants a strong Republican Party.
I'd love a loyal opposition. I'd love a Republican Party that was conservative in some ways, that didn't agree with me on a whole bunch of stuff, but believed in rule of law and judicial independence and empirical evidence and science, and wasn't constantly tapping into our worst impulses.
And I get what he's trying to say here, right? He wants a Republican Party that's not batshit insane, right? That's not a cult, that's not dedicated to practically ruining the entire country and being unscientific and pushing all these dangerous ideologies. Unless you're a white Christian, of course, then you're A-okay. But I think it's a little late, to be honest, right? For a lot of people to understand and sympathize with that attitude, right? Because wanting for that is being, to a lot of people, far too kind to the current Republican Party, especially people my age. Like just today, for example, when Virginia Supreme Court announced this decision, the official Democrats account said, the Virginia Supreme Court has voted to overturn the results of the state special election. This decision silences the voices of Virginians who approved an updated congressional map that levels the playing field ahead of the midterms. The fight continues. Right? So a fine response. And then the Republicans retweeted it with this picture. Yeah, I mean, they don't give a fuck about any of us, right? It's pure team sports to them. The Republican Party has been nothing but a negative force on the planet since before I was born, right? The Republicans, and in step with many Democrats, gave us Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, the 2008 financial housing crisis, deregulation of industries, more pollution, stacking the Supreme Court, right? And on top of all of that, 2 generations in a row that are now statistically going to have it worse than their parents. Millennials and Gen Z both are looking to have it worse than Generation X and especially Boomers. God bless the Boomers. And this is not because of woke, right? Or because of working less, or because of soy matcha lattes, right? It's an institutional battle that has been fought by those who got power decades ago and have been holding on to it for the past 40 years. And in my opinion, the Democratic Party has long struggled to be in opposition to the Republicans, not the other way around.
The Democratic Party is not a real ideological party, okay? It's not a real party. Doesn't have paid membership. They're just a collection of corporate interests. And they don't always have to be a collection of corporate interests. It's just a brand.
Yeah, on that note, the day that this Supreme Court decision passed and, democracy, got even further whittled down, this is what Chuck Schumer had to say. Yeah, a post about UFO disclosures. Yeah, maybe 15 years ago this would have gone gangbusters, but we don't need this right now, right? This is the kind of shit you talk about when there is nothing else going on. But there's a lot going on right now. So get back to work and continue to fight, right? The Democrats right now have this potential energy in the country that is on their side, right? And far more than ever before, they have this progressive, strong fighting momentum force with workers and people just like wanting to take the reins of power and take it away from those who have had it and give it to people who are actually willing to, buck the system and fight the status quo and actually fight for those people who need it, right? Now, this is a pipe dream, but when it comes to redistricting, there is a lot more that the Democrats could do, right? They could redistrict in New York, Colorado, Maryland, Oregon, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. They could redraw their maps in California and Illinois. They could gain a lot more seats. If the Republicans really want this fight and the Democrats really want to fight back, the balkanization of the U.S. could be a potential, which obviously I don't want. But, the Democrats here do need to fight fire with fire. Because right now, the barely leaking, tepid pipe that they're, trying to squirt some water on the Republican dumpster fire is not going to fix the pure barbarity of the Republican Party, right? People are pissed. They are upset at this administration. They are upset with the Republican Party. They are upset with the Democratic Party. But all of that to say, still, regardless of all of that, all of those losses, all of what's happened, the Democrats will still most likely win the midterm elections, right? They will take back the House and maybe take back the Senate. That is what Republicans are facing, right? Even when Republicans are rigging the entire thing, they're trying to tilt the scales in their favor to the extreme, they are still most likely not going to win. That is how unpopular they are right now, right? This country still is by and large going to vote for the Democrats because the Republicans are that unpopular. But this is momentum that needs to be carried into 2028. And the Democrats must fight like hell to make it happen. because the Republicans are losing it. Just look at this post from the official Senate Republicans account retweeting this post from Hassan Piker about the Virginia redistricting, where he says the Virginia Supreme Court denied the results of the redistricting referendum, SCOTUS gutted the Voting Rights Act, and Tennessee carved up the last Dem district, destroying black voter power in the state. And then he says, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And so then the Republicans say, oh, Abdullah Sayed, you caucus with this guy, or you're going to condemn Hassan Piker, violent revolution, oh, it's so bad. When did the Senate Republicans remember that that's a John F. Kennedy quote? That's a famous quote from a famous president. Republicans are so brain dead. They're so hyper-focused on being bigoted little freaks that they forget a famous quote from a president, right? They're so far gone, right? And I'm not a nihilist. I'm not a doomer, but people are feeling pretty low about this whole thing. But I think that it's a gut punch, right? This Virginia thing, Tennessee, but the fight continues, right? There's so many badass candidates right now. Chris Rabb in Pennsylvania, Graham Plattner out in Maine, James Tallarico in Texas, Abdullah Sayed in Michigan, right? There's a lot of these new, fresh candidates, and there's a lot of familiar faces who are going to continue to fight for us. So the movement grows stronger every day. We just have to continue fighting. But I think it's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end. I really appreciate it. If you like what you saw in this video, be sure to leave a like down below, and don't forget to subscribe to US Democratic Socialists, and also leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts about all of this and more. But so yeah, do all the good stuff down below and have a great day. I'm Iago Lashua. Goodbye.